we're back with Mike Pierce, the wine director at Maverick, San Francisco-based restaurant, and we're ready to do some food, or I should say snack food, junk food, and wine pairings. We're going to start off with the breakfast of champions, Fruit Loops. Mike, this was one of your suggestions, and there's nothing like starting the day with a nice wine pairing with your cereal. So what on earth are you pairing Fruit Loops with?
Well, here's the question back to you. Do you have milk in there or no? You do?
No way. I don't do milk. I'm doing wine now with my Fruit Loops. So, no.
I mean, do you have milk in the Fruit Loops, or are they just dry?
They're just dry right now.
Got it. Well, because being fastidious, when I did the pairing, I did it with dry Fruit Loops and then with Fruit Loops with milk. They actually pair pretty well. The sad thing about Fruit Loops, which is fortunately not true with Skittles, is that every color of Fruit Loops tastes exactly the same.
Really? This isn't like lime?
No, they all taste the same. I was hoping like Skittles, every flavor tastes pretty different.
Okay.
I landed on a dry Provencian rosé. Okay. A lot of wines pair pretty well with the Fruit Loops, but the rosé just really shone through. And when I did this I had 30 people in my restaurant doing this pairing together, which was really cracking me up. And we all agreed that was kind of the best pairing of the four that day.
Really?
People really enjoyed it. So.
Okay, we've got to try this. So it doesn't matter which Fruit Loop.
No.
Actually, I would have expected the Fruit Loops being so sweet would make a dry rosé taste awful, and it doesn't. It's actually pretty good. Should I pour the rosé on the Fruit Loops? No. Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I think rosés, because of their Saignée nature, almost have a Fruit Loop smell. It's the fruit smell to me with Saignée rosés is very not candy in a bad way, but very stretched out, and it kind of smells a little bit like the Fruit Loops.
And the Saignée, we should just say, is when they sort of bleed the color off the grapes, the juice as it's fermenting, right? Yeah. So, okay, we're not going to start the day with Fruit Loops, but, a lot of people, this is a kind of evening snack. And if, you want to be drinking some wine, this actually works. I thought it would be terrible. Okay.
No, it works well. It's refreshing, and it works because the wine doesn't overpower the Fruit Loop, and the Fruit Loop doesn't overpower the wine. You can still taste both of them, which I always look for in my pairing. You don't want one to dominate the other.
Wow. Okay. We're opening new worlds of pleasure here. I am. A doubting Thomas who's coming around. Okay, Skittles. You've also, now Skittles are different from Fruit Loops in that I read that you say these do taste different, the green versus the red. So what do you do with wine when it comes to Skittles?
Well, the green, the red ones would be best with the rosé. Okay. For this purposes here, the red ones are cherry, strawberry, and tend to go quite well with the rosé.
Okay, and why is that?
They're quite chewy.
They are. Are you getting some like rose petal or raspberry notes from the dry rosé that's working with the strawberry of the Skittle?
Yeah, I think it brings out the fruit. I mean, my rosé is a little lighter than yours, I think. But it brings out the fruit character in the rosé. And the Skittles themselves, I think, really have a lot of acidity for a sweet candy.
Oh.
And the acid matches up quite nice.
It does.
The key thing with a lot of these junk food wine pairings is do no harm. So these are working. I think what I like people to do if they're not true believers after this is to taste wines that don't go well and see how bad it tastes in your mouth.
Right.
There's so many chemicals in here that can really bounce off certain wines.
Yeah.
And it's a long process to find the ones that work okay, and then to find the ones that really work is an even longer process.
That's great.
Dead soldiers in between that leave horrible tastes.
It's a fun process. It's long but enjoyable. Yeah. But you know what I thought? Like I always went to the default of the wine must be sweeter than the dessert. So, whether it was biscotti or chocolate cake. But these Skittles are definitely sweet, and the rosé is bone dry. There's not a bit of sweetness in there, and it's still working. That's what's amazing me.
Good. Yeah, I come at almost all of my dessert pairings for all of our special menus. I try to give guests a choice, but I always come at it from both sides. I'll do the ports and the Madeiras and those things, sweeter wines with dessert. But I also like to have an option of coming at it with a dry wine. I actually enjoy pairing and drinking dry wines with sweet desserts much more than the sweet wine.
Yeah, and I think what's happening here is it's flavor to flavor and acid to acid as opposed to just looking at sweetness. That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty complimentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Sugar out of the equation.
But not the junk food. Okay, how about salt and vinegar chips? I love these. I have cravings for these. What are we going to do when it comes to salt and vinegar chips, Mike?
You know, salt and vinegar chips, originally for me, the best pairing is Sancerre. Sancerre and even Puy Fumé, if you can find it at a reasonable price.
Which is Sauvignon Blanc from France.
Yeah. Sauvignon Blanc from the neighbor Sauvignon Blanc. I really, it's got enough acid to go with the vinegar.
Yep.
And it's something about the chalky soil of Sancerre and Puy Fumé that I think matches the vinegar aspect and the salty aspect. A very key thing when pairing salty foods, you need a very, very lean wine.
Lean meaning not fat and oaky and buttery.
You want Champagne, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Gruner Veltliner, thinner feeling textural wine.
How about a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc?
Check it out. For me, that might be a little too dominating.
Okay.
Both in the fruit and alcohol way, but it could be quite good.
All right.
That could be good because I think New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs always have that sour kiwi, grapefruit, really sour citrus element to them, which can match really well with vinegar.
Okay.
Again, Sauvignon Blanc works well for another reason is vinegar is acid, and Sauvignon Blancs are high acid grapes. You have the acid-acid combination.
That's true.
And lastly, Sauvignon Blancs go great with potato. I don't know why. They just work really well with that starchy smell of potato.
Okay. So more potato-y chips like Pringles or whatever would work well with Sauvignon Blanc?
Which, if you don't mind, is a good segue. I just poured myself. I have Pringles and Albarino from Rias Baixas area of Spain. They are one of the best wine and food chip combinations out there. Just because Albarinos are very sour and it really works well. They're lean. They actually, where they're grown is right next to the ocean, so they're salty a little bit. They're salty and sour and minerally. It's a great pairing. It's one of those few junk food pairings that actually has a little bit of synergy to it. They make a better flavor.
Yeah. Well, this one's working. The New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, which I picked, was Monkey Bay, and it's working really well. Yeah, with the salt and the vinegar. But you're right, the vinegar in the salt and vinegar has a real sour taste, but the herbal and the acid from the wine is just dancing with it. It's great.
That's great.
Yeah. Lots of
fun.
That
makes sense. That, a classic pairing with salad with a house vinaigrette. Any wine pairing book you read it's always Sauvignon Blanc. To go with the vinaigrette, you need something to match the acid. Otherwise, it'll just dominate. So.
Yeah.
A lot of times I take cues from classic pairings based like salty and potatoes and vinegar. And yes, the potato chip in a bag, but it's still a food product that has certain ingredients. So a lot of times I work backwards from that.
Yeah. And but when we're talking about the much different Dorito chips, does MSG play havoc with wine? Because I know there's MSG in some of those Dorito chips that make it very...
Yeah. Good question. MSG and the other one that I think, well, I don't think many people are doing what I do, but the thing that took me a little while to figure out was whey protein. Most chips have whey protein on them.
Okay.
And the only thing I found to match whey protein and MSG was heavy lees contact.
And what does lees contact mean for those who are not familiar with that?
Sorry, the lees are the dead yeast cells that when yeast eats sugar to make alcohol, creates heat, kills the yeast cells, they fall down to the bottom of the barrel. Most New World winemaking techniques pump them off the lees, but there's also a process called façonnage where you can stir the lees and get that flavor in there.
And it gives an extra creaminess, yeah.
It adds richness and floral notes without adding fruit or alcohol. That's kind of how I always describe it. Always floral notes, and that floral creamy flatness to the palate really matches the whey protein and MSG.
Wow.
And you might have to just trust me on that one.
That's great. There's just a wine for everything. Okay, I want to get on to our last one, Cracker Jacks. This is so nostalgic. This brings back childhood, even though I wasn't drinking back then. But man, now what are we going to do with Cracker Jacks? If I can get them open. Oh, I think that's open at the bottom. Do you have Cracker Jacks?
You're gonna get.
Pardon me?
I wonder what prize you're going to get on the bottom.
Oh. Oh yeah, that's the big surprise at the end of this.
Nope.
Yeah, not being able to.
Why don't they still do that? It's probably like an iPhone app or something.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need scissors here. Anyway, do you have Cracker Jacks with you or something like that?
I do. I got them.
Okay, awesome. Man who's prepared with snacks. Okay, so we've got buttery, we've got nuts. Is there anything special about Cracker Jacks that you think about when you're pairing it with wine?
Well, I think you just said two of the things, buttery and nuts. I think the third thing, which would make it pretty obvious which wine to choose, would be caramel. You know, there's caramel coating on them. And those three words, buttery, nutty, caramel, you put those in an equation for an equal sign, and I think it always points to California Chardonnay.
Yes, absolutely. California, or could we also do like Chile or Australia, as long as it's buttery oaked?
Yeah, any New World Chardonnay.
Okay.
Any New World Chardonnay, and I think to really play into it, what would be great would be to do a cooler climate New World Chardonnay.
Oh yeah.
Just so maybe the Chardonnay retains a little bit of acidity, because again, you're going to have a lot of sugar with caramel on your teeth. You're going to want something to cut through that. So I think if you can optimally find a reasonably priced Chardonnay with some oak on it and good acidity, which is not easy, it should be a great pairing.
Oh, this is like liquid butter wrapping around solid butter. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, it's good. I just never thought this. I was stuck on sweetness. So this is Penfolds Chardonnay. Yeah. Are you trying it too?
Really good.
Yeah, this is my favorite.
I have a small Sierra Madre Chardonnay from Santa Maria Valley. Very cool climate area. Lots of oak, but lots of acid. That's a great pairing.
Oh, this is my favorite.
Unlike most of these, I think everybody should try this at home.
They should. They really should. I mean, it's fun, and it actually tastes good. It doesn't. I just thought this is just going to destroy wine, but it actually is a lot of fun, and it's tasty. If you're going to snack, why not have wine? Because we always default to beer and pop. I guess it's just the culture, right?
Yeah, culture. It's somewhat laziness in some ways, and yeah, I think those are just those industries. I don't think the wine industry really pushes itself to go with, with snacks.
Yeah, maybe they think it's. What's
I'm waiting for Frito-Lay to call me with a contract to be their spokesperson.
Don't wait too long.
Demographic, the wine and cheese demographic.
Yeah. Well, I think this is also, I don't know, like part of making wine fun and accessible. It's certainly not, in my mind, dumbing it down taste-wise, because this is tasty, and a lot of us do eat these kind of snacks, so why not? Yep. My secret guilty indulgence.
Yeah, it makes for good entertainment. In my worldview, it makes for a good learning experience. Because again, deconstructing why this is working is a huge learning experience, and you can use that knowledge to move on to pair stuff from classic menus and classic cuisines. I think there's an education note to it.
Yep. All right. My secret guilty pleasure is Mars bars, and sometimes when they're fried. I know that just sounds just off the charts weird, but can you recommend a wine for me, Mike?
Okay. A Mars bar is similar to a Snickers bar, correct?
Yes.
Is that caramel?
Yep, and nougat and a bit of nuts, chocolate coating, and then of course that's not enough. You have to fry it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do they bread it to fry it? Is it breaded in like a tempura, or just fried?
No, it's not breaded. That would be too much. That would be overkill. Madeira would be a great complement to the Mars bar itself, because
They're always full of caramel and nuttiness, toffee. Adding the fried element to it, I would almost go with a sweet sherry.
Oh, really?
Pedro Jimenez sherry. Again, fried food and sherry go great together, and I think some of the sherries also, because of their oxidized nature, have that caramel, nougat, nutty quality to them. I think a third alternative would be a really oily aged Roussan or Marsanne, either from California or from the northern Rhone Valley.
Wow.
That would be my synopsis.
I am so set for this weekend. Thank you, Mike. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to lead me through a few of these really fun tastings, and we'll post this and more information about where people can take your classes if they happen to be in San Francisco. But thanks again for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.